Hi, everybody out there. Hey, today we are going to talk about asteroids, and it's becoming one of my favorite subjects because there's so much we don't know about them, but there's some fun things we do know about them. And my little dinosaur friend here was starting to get nervous when I started to, talk about asteroids and do some experiments with asteroids, because maybe millions of years ago when dinosaurs were around, it might have been maybe a comet or an asteroid that actually hit the Earth and, and created a whole bunch of dust or something that actually wiped out the dinosaurs. That's what scientists think, and that's what my T-Rex thinks too. So he's a little nervous about this science program. But, let's find out about asteroids and find out how they might have impacted the dinosaurs and a whole bunch of other things. Okay, so what is an asteroid? Well, they're chunks of rock. And I have a bunch of chunks of rock in here in my pan. They're chunks of rock, or they could be chunks of metal that are out there in space, but where did they come from? Well, scientists think that they may have been pieces of rocks and metal that broke apart when some planets crashed into each other. That was a big planet crash. Boom, out there in space, everything's spinning around, and then maybe a planet broke apart. That could have been one theory. But I'm going to turn on my tabletop camera to show you kind of how some asteroids may have originated. Here we go. There's my tabletop camera, and I've got a big pan here of rocks and pebbles and dirt, and I am going to put a little Play-Doh ball in the middle for the sun, and this represents the solar system when it was just beginning to form, and there was a whole lot of debris out there, the sun, and it was swirling around and rotating around the sun. So I'm going to swirl my pan and show you how some of those rocks were all together rolling around the sun, and whoa, rolling around the sun. And out of that, some of the planets were formed. Now, some of the ones, when I did this before, there we go, some of the larger ones like that, you could tell that some of the larger pebbles maybe became some of the planets. Some smaller pebbles right close to the sun were maybe the first rocky planets like Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. And then some of the leftover debris, spread out throughout the whole solar system as things rolled around the sun, spun around the sun, and began to change. And some debris is attracted to each other. I have a little pan of sand here to show you. So I'm going to take my finger and show you some of the fine grains of sand there. But then as I roll it together, the larger particles kind of collect together. Can you see that? How it changed and looked? So that's what was happening out in the solar system when it first began. Okay, so there was a lot of debris. Now you can see the finer grains. Now let's see if we can make the larger grains sift out and kind of go all in one spot and stay together. So that's what was happening way out there in the solar system. And there may have been some smaller planets like the one I had right here that crashed into each other. So asteroids are they were made probably by some of the smaller planets that were out in that asteroid belt in between Mars and Jupiter that had crashed together and little chunks broke off. So now if you brought with you some Play-Doh, let's do a couple of experiments together that we can do to show what asteroids might be made of. So if you have some Play-Doh, I've got a bunch of chunks here. Take and break off a little ball right here with me and roll it in your hand, and let's make that the center of an asteroid. You know, as things are rolling around out there, the larger chunks of rock and metal are sticking together, and the heavier ones, you know, might fall to the middle. So now I'm going to do another chunk. So as these rocks are crashing together, they attract one another. So maybe there's another layer as the asteroids are going around in space. Take a little piece of another color of Play-Doh if you have it, or if you just have more of the same color, just take another chunk and flatten it out, and let's make some layers. There we go. So I'm wrapping that layer around my center chunk. The heavier ones go to the center, and the outer ones, whoa, what happened to the orange one? Let's do one more layer. So I'm going to take some blue here. Oh, maybe there's even ice chunks that are floating around, you know, that whole big pan of things rolling around the sun in our solar system maybe contains some frozen water. So I'm going to take another chunk of some of my Play-Doh and flatten it out and see if I can make another layer to make my asteroid here. And I'm smushing it thin. Maybe there's a layer of water that got trapped inside. So here we go. And I'm going to wrap that around my asteroid to make another layer. Can you do that? All right, so now, wow. And then I'm going to make one more layer in my asteroid. I'm going to take another ball and flatten it out. And actually, the chunks of rock tells us how things were formed out there. We can figure it out by examining things and looking at things and seeing what happened. And we do a lot of guessing too. What would happen if? Okay, so there's my last layer that I flattened out, and I'm going to cover my water layer and stretch it around. And now I've got a really large asteroid out there. I'm going to put some craters on my asteroid by poking it here and there. Ta-da. But let's take a look at our layers. I've got a little knife, a little plastic knife, and I'm going to cut it, my asteroid in half, and let's see. Whoa, what's it going to look like if I cut it with all those layers inside? Whoa, lots of planets have layers like that. The Earth does. The metals and molten rock are in the middle, and in this case, my asteroid, there's a trap. Some water is trapped underneath the surface layer, and then there's the surface layer that gets struck by other meteorites and asteroids. Whoa, so that it can happen out there in space with some of the larger asteroids. Wow. So I hope you were able to make a layered one, a layered rock. But there's other things to think about. You probably don't have one of these with you, but I have a cookie. And let's think about our layered asteroid as a cookie, and it's got lots of different things in it, right? Well, so does a cookie. So I'm just going to demonstrate this. So we're going to take a cookie. That's just a basic chocolate chip cookie. And let's say that this is an asteroid floating around in space. Well, it's made of rock. Maybe it's made of metal. What else is it made of? It might have been part of a really big asteroid that crashed into another one and broke all apart. So floating around in space, all the asteroids aren't the same because they're little pieces of maybe something that was bigger. So I've got a soup can, and I'm going to crush. Oh, I'm going to crush my cookie. I was going to crush my cookie. Oh, there we go. It's not breaking up. I was going to crush it with my can, but it's not working. So I'm just going to break it apart in my hands. Lots of collisions. My asteroid ran into different other rocks in space. And look what happened. Whoa. Lots of little pieces. Now, because cookies are made up of different things and there's different things inside them, it's just like if there's different kinds of rocks, different kinds of metal. Lots of asteroids are totally made out of metal, just like a chocolate chip is totally made out of chocolate. And it doesn't look like this piece of my asteroid cookie that might have been made out of some silicone or some carbon or something else that was in space. So that one might be made out of totally something different. And what else goes into cookies? Maybe flour and sugar. So if I broke it up small enough, I might be able to find a little grain of sugar, brown sugar in my cookie. So this piece of my asteroid would have a different content than maybe this piece or this really, really, really tiny piece right there. So that's just a little bit about what asteroids are made out of. So that's kind of really cool. That's my little, now my cookie's all messed up. Oh well. Okay, so I have another thing to show you. So how many asteroids are out there? I put a picture of a moon inside my pie pan, and there's a whole asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars, and there's a lot of asteroids in that swirling around. Let's say they're swirling around all together. There's so many out there, but they may have been parts of planets that broke up or other things. But how many of them are there? So I'm going to start scooping gravel onto the moon. And the reason I'm doing that is because if you took all the asteroids in the whole asteroid belt, all of those rocks, even the bigger ones like Ceres and Vesta, there's a bunch of bigger ones. Actually, Ceres is actually as big as Texas, and they call it a dwarf planet now. But if you took all of the asteroids in the asteroid belt and lumped them all together, it would only be about as big as our moon. See that? Wow. And so space is huge. Space is really big. It's spread out. So I'm going to do this again. Pull up my moon picture. All the asteroids in the asteroid belt, if you lumped them all together, it would only be about as big as our moon. Woohoo! So that's a quickie demonstration for you. Okay, so let's do something else. Okay, I'm gonna come back to the FaceTime camera now. How you doing out there? Were you able to make one of these? I hope so. All right, well, there is a lot of stuff flying around up there in space. A lot of rocks, a lot of different things, and you may have heard about some of them. And asteroids are out there, but so are comets, and so are meteoroids, and so are meteors, and so are meteorites. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between them. And I made myself a comet. Whoops. A comet. Because comets are made up of, they've been around since the beginning of the solar system. And they are kind of like dirty snowballs. And I went outside today and I grabbed a handful of snow. So let's talk a little bit about comets. They're a little bit different than asteroids. So when you start to think about what's up there in space, what's flying around, about asteroids, and you think about comets. And a lot of times people call comets dirty snowballs. So I got a big snowball out of the snowbank by my driveway this morning, and I wanted to take a look at it up close. So, whoa, comets are out there, and they may have a little bit of water ice or ice from other gases, but they also have a collection of rocks. that they've picked up. So I am taking my snowball and kind of making it dirty by picking up some of the rocks that I have in my pan. And I've got some more here that are a little bit dirtier, so I'm going to put some in there. And comets orbit the sun too. Okay, I'm making a dirty snowball. There we go. Comets orbit the sun too, and when they do, when they get their orbit gets a little closer to the sun out there in space, they start to melt and they start to lose some of the things that they're made out of, and they have trails behind them as they circle the sun and go through space. So I'm going to take my hairdryer. Whoa, I made a big mess here. I'm going to take my hairdryer and I'm going to take my comet that I made, my dirty snowball, and I'm going to simulate the tail streaming by and melting off as it goes past the sun. Solar winds are hitting it. Okay, so let's see what happens to a comet's tail when I turn this on. Whoops, come on. Oh, all of a sudden it's not working. Why isn't my hairdryer working? It did a little while ago. Just a minute. Might have come unplugged. There we go. Whoa! There it is. I'm going to turn it on high and you can see it. There. Whoa. It's really active in the sky. Whoa. And that's all from solar winds. And as it goes through the solar system, it's losing a lot of its rock and ice. And that is staying out there in space. And so when the Earth kind of crosses that trail, some of those little tiny pieces of the comet's tail, sometimes Earth can go through the tail. We get a lot. We get a meteor shower. So yeah. So I wanted to draw something quickly on my camera down here on the table for you to show you something. And then we'll go back to FaceTime. All right, so comets circle around the sun. So here's my paper, and I'm going to draw a sun right here. And then there's some other planets in our solar system. There's Mercury. Whoa, my red pen is not working. Mercury, Venus, and Earth. Whoa, I lost Earth. Okay. Earth, and then maybe Mars. And all of these are going in circles or orbits around the sun, and they're pretty much in a circle, but sometimes, you know, oval shapes. And then of course there's other planets out there. Okay, here's the asteroid belt, and they say that if you stood on one of the asteroids, one of the bigger ones, it's so big out there and so much distance that you couldn't even see the other one right there, the distance between this asteroid and this asteroid. You couldn't, if you stood on this one, you couldn't even see this one. So that's how much distance there is out there in space. But a comet, you know, we were just talking about a comet. A comet started let's see, here's Jupiter maybe, and Saturn. Way out there. Oh, I'm off my screen. There we go. Jupiter and Saturn. And then Neptune, Uranus and Neptune, and then Pluto, and then way off my page. But a comet has a different orbit. It comes from way out here in the solar system, way at the end in the Kuiper Belt, and then maybe swings all around close by around the sun and then goes back way, way out here, way, 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 way out past where is off my page. So, but everywhere the comet goes, it leaves behind little pieces of itself, rocks. And every once in a while, see, here's Earth. The Earth will cross a comet trail. The Earth crosses the comet trail. And that's when we get a lot of meteor showers. All right. So just briefly, there's all those rocks up there in space. And I want to talk about the difference. A meteoroid is a rock that's out there in space with the asteroids, and maybe a meteoroid actually, here's the one we made, might have been a chunk. Meteorite might have been a chunk that came off an asteroid, or it could have come off a comet. Could have come off a comet. My little chunks, but it's a rock up in space, and it becomes a meteor when it enters the Earth's atmosphere. So I had you guys take in, hopefully you have a pan of Jello. So that's the next thing we're going to do, because we're going to talk about what a meteor is. Different before a meteoroid enters the Earth's atmosphere. Meteoroid, but as soon as it enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's a meteor. And so if you have some Jello, and if you have a straw, and if you have some nerd candies, or you know what, I went to the store to get myself some nerd candies and I couldn't find any, so I had to substitute some popcorn. Here's my pan of Jello. So let's see what happens when a meteoroid becomes a meteor and hits Earth's atmosphere. We don't usually have to worry about meteors too much because our atmosphere protects us. Okay, so, well, you can kind of see my reflection. So there's my Jello. So we're going to pretend right now that the Jello is our atmosphere around Earth. And I just loaded my straw. Whoa. I just loaded my straw with a piece of popcorn. Or if you have nerd candies, that'll work too. And so I'm going to put my finger on one end and I'm going to blow into the other end and see if I can get it through the Jello. So maybe I'm going to try it here and maybe I'll have to go to a FaceTime camera. Let's see. Oh, there it is. It didn't even go in. Yeah, I'm going to go to a FaceTime camera. This is hard to see. So what I want you to do is try to get your nerd candy or your piece of popcorn through to the Jello. I'm going to load my straw with a bunch of them to see. Oops, that piece of popcorn is too big. Here's a smaller one. Okay, I put about 2 or 3 of them inside my straw, and I'm going to shoot them at my Jello atmosphere to see if I can get it down to Earth. I don't think I can. There it is. So I'm gonna blow. All right, can you see that? It didn't go through the Jello at all. It's just sitting there on top. And just because I have some rocks here, I thought maybe I would try a rock. They're sharper. So I'll put a sharper piece of rock inside my straw and see if I can get it through the Jello. I don't know if I can or not. So you guys can have fun trying this. No, it just fell out. We'll try it again. We'll try it. Get it going fast because meteors in space are moving really fast. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Whoa, it skidded across the top. And of course, when rocks hit our Earth's atmosphere, just like this, the atmosphere slows them down and they start to heat up and they start to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. That's why a lot of them don't even hit the ground. And if they do, then a meteor becomes a meteorite. So if you find a meteorite on the ground at Earth, that's one that has made it through Earth's atmosphere. So I'm going to put that down for a little bit. And now we are going to make our own, we're going to make our own asteroid in a different way, because we smashed the cookie, we made some layers, but let's make our own, because not a lot of them, only the bigger ones have the layers. A lot of them just kind of go through space and attract other debris that is out there, and they can look crazy like potatoes. So I'm going to get out a bunch of things and the Play-Doh again, and we're going to make another asteroid out of some crazy things to imitate what they might look like in space. And this is our last thing to do for today. So let's see. I got some marbles, and I got some rocks, and I've got my sand here. And I've got some things to make them have some craters on them and everything. I'm gonna get out my Play-Doh again, and we're gonna model what an asteroid might look like out there in space if they just collected a bunch of things as they were traveling around and just combined them. A lot of asteroids actually look like weird potatoes. So I got a little piece here, and I got another piece here, and I'm just going to make a collection of parts and pieces for my asteroid. There, I got a couple of colors, and I'm rolling them together. So you can do that too. Whoa, my asteroid is getting kind of weird looking. Lots of different things, metals. Oh yeah, so I have a little bowl and a magnet here. And inside my little bowl, I have a magnet, and I'm gonna see, oh, it picked up all of my metals. So that I'm gonna put some metals, because asteroids rolling around in space do pick up some metals. And I'm gonna put some of those into my asteroid. Whoa, got some chunks of metal in there. And I'm gonna put some chunks of rock in there. This is gonna look really cool. And I'm gonna put some more clay in there and roll it around. And maybe this one's gonna be a pretty big one. I might put like another round one in over here, and some more metals in here, and some more pebbles in here. Oh, look, it's getting there. Oh man. And whoa, check that out. Now that's looking pretty good. So you can do all kinds of things. Now, another thing you might do if you have some weird kitchen tools, you could take, I got a meatballer. I could maybe shape an asteroid out using that and see what happens. Whoa, cool, look at that. Or maybe it got hit with a whole lot of meteoroids or meteors. And there's my ice cream scoop. And the inside of my ice cream scoop has dots, and so now I've got dots on mine. I'll put a few more marbles in there. Or I can scoop out some chunks. There, scoop out some rounded chunks and put some craters on there. I'm flying. So you can kind of play around with that. And just remember that asteroids are chunks of rocks or metal out there in space that are made probably in a couple of different ways. And so there we go. Dinosaur is still a little bit nervous, but there we go. So you guys can show me what you made. Show me your asteroid if you made one. Oh, there you go. Very nice. Anybody else? I'm going to have to get my marble out to play with that later. But there we are. So asteroids, they are pretty fun and interesting to think about. All right, that's it for today. So I hope you had a good time listening and playing along with me. Bye! Saw something I had never ever seen before. And here's where you get to make a choice. Was it a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex? And I'm just gonna stick some pine cones in my box, and then the fun starts. I just start rolling them around. Air rushing out of the balloon is going to push that balloon up. So let's see what happens. All right, 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow. So that's how rockets kind of work. We are going to build 2 different kinds of rockets today.
Cork on as fast as you can, set it down, and wait. Woo! All right.